It is live. So good morning, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to participate in our scoping meeting for the Milpitas General Plan Update, Environmental Impact Report. This is in conjunction with the NOP that we sent out. That letter, it was posted on the General Plan website. It was posted on the city's website, and I did send a notice out to a number of different elected officials, stakeholders, and community members. So thank you for joining if you're watching, and I'm going to turn my time over to Ben Richie, who's our consultant for De Novo, and he will speak to you about the general plan update, about the EIR process. And if you have any questions or if you would like to make any comments, please submit those to the, there was an NOP address, and I may have to ask Liz if she can jump on really quick, introduce herself, and just let us know what that email address is, so I don't mess it up.
Hello, everybody. So I'll be reading any comments, public comments that are sent, that should be sent to planning meeting, one word, planning meeting at ci.milpitas.ca.gov. Thank you.
Thanks, Liz. And I apologize, I didn't introduce myself. If I haven't had a chance to meet you yet, I'm Jessica Garner. I'm the planning manager for the city of Milpitas. And I will turn it over to Ben now. So thanks, Ben.
All right, thank you very much, Jessica. So hello, everybody. My name is Ben Richie. I'm a principal with De Novo Planning Group. And as Jessica mentioned, my firm has been hired by the city to prepare a comprehensive update to the general plan. And as part of that work effort, we're also preparing an environmental impact report, or an EIR, which is required under CEQA, which is the California Environmental Quality Act. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to walk you through a brief PowerPoint, and that's going to kind of explain the EIR and the CEQA process, provide a little context about the general plan update, and most importantly, provide information on how members of the public or interested agencies can submit comments on the environmental analysis. And before I get started, there was one important distinction that I wanted to make. When we're doing a general plan update, most members of the community rightfully have a very high level of interest in the plan itself. What's in the land use map? What types of policies are we pursuing as a city? And I want to assure you that there's going to be ample opportunity for the public to provide input and comments on those aspects of the general plan itself. However, today's meeting is not that. What today's meeting is a required, it's called a scoping meeting. It's a required step under the California Environmental Quality Act. And our purpose today is to get information from the public on key environmental issues or environmental topics that we should address in detail in the environmental impact report that we're preparing for the plan. So I'll talk more about this as I work my way through the PowerPoint, but I did just want to be clear that, again, this is not our meeting to discuss the pros and cons of any draft of the general plan or the land use map. We're really focused on the environmental side of things today. So with that, I am going to pop open my PowerPoint presentation and walk you through.
And Ben, when you need to just move or request the slide to be moved, just say next. And many thanks to our IS department for providing support for this meeting. So they'll forward the slides for us.
Well, fortunately for them, they have let me drive. So
oh, good.
Be able to advance through my own show. So without further ado, what I'm going to do here in this presentation is just give a quick overview of the general plan update, talk a little bit more about the purpose of today's meeting, provide a summary of the environmental review process. I'll provide an overview of the issues and topics we are planning to address in the environmental impact report. And we'll talk about the path forward in terms of the general plan update effort as a whole, and specifically the CEQA process, and also information on how members of the public can provide comments. So as I mentioned at the outset, the purpose of today's meeting is to receive comments from the public and interested agencies on environmental issues that the draft EIR should address. The city of Milpitas has chosen to hold this meeting to enhance public participation as part of the project's review under CEQA. And as I mentioned, today's meeting is not intended as a forum to discuss the merits of the general plan itself, but here we're really focused on environmental issues. So this slide that you're seeing here is just a quick kind of graphic overview of the process we've been going through over the last several years. Writing a general plan is very involved. We do a lot of community outreach, and there are a number of steps or milestone documents that we have completed along the way. So we began by doing a lot of outreach work and helping to identify community priorities. We prepared a detailed existing conditions report. We've prepared a number of policy memos on various issues and opportunities that have been identified throughout the process. And we've been working very closely with what we call the GPAC, which is the General Plan Advisory Committee. It's an appointed group of citizens and stakeholders that the council appointed to help guide the city's efforts for crafting the general plan. We've prepared a detailed land use alternatives report, which looks at different iterations of your land use map and how the city may or may not grow over the next 20-year time period. We've developed draft goals, policies, and programs or implementing actions for the general plan. And we're in the process now of packaging all that up into a nice looking document, the actual draft general plan itself. And we expect the draft general plan to be available on the project website within the next week or so. We're also in the process of preparing the environmental impact report, and this meeting is a key component of that. And ultimately, after we do some additional rounds of public review and comment, we'll be going before the Planning Commission and the City Council for a series of hearings looking to adopt the general plan and certify the EIR. And as noted on the left-hand side of the screen, there are opportunities for public participation throughout this process, this meeting being one of them. So as I think I've mentioned by now, the city is preparing a comprehensive update to its general plan. Every city and county in California is required to have an adopted general plan. Sometimes cities do targeted updates where they only look at pieces or parts of it, but Milpitas right now is doing a comprehensive update to its plan, including the land use map. Under CEQA, the California Environmental Quality Act, the general plan itself is considered a project, which means it's subject to environmental review and analysis. So the city of Milpitas is serving as the lead agency under CEQA, and my firm, De Novo Planning Group, has been retained to not only prepare the general plan update, but also the required environmental impact report, as well as some various technical studies that go along with that. So traffic studies, air quality studies, noise, looking at water and wastewater, and other technical aspects of the environmental analysis. So as I mentioned, throughout the course of preparing this general plan update, community outreach and participation has been very important to the city. So we've had a number of avenues and opportunities for public participation. First and foremost is the project website. So that's milpitas.generalplan.org. And if you haven't had a chance to visit that website, I definitely encourage you to do so. All these reports that I'm referencing, past meeting summaries, things like that, there's a wealth of information on the general plan website. We held at the outset of this project a series of 3 community visioning workshops. This was an opportunity for us to explain the intent and the purpose of the general plan to the community. And most importantly, it was an opportunity for us to listen. So we heard a lot of feedback from community members. We got direction on some key issues and challenges, and this really helped shape the trajectory of the general plan we've been working on for the last couple of years. We've had a couple of online surveys to provide additional avenues for community input and participation. We've published some project newsletters, which provide, again, information on how to participate and where we are at various stages of the project. I mentioned the GPAC, the General Plan Advisory Committee. They've met so far a total of 12 times, and we anticipate scheduling additional meetings with them in the very near future, hopefully in the next month or so. And the General Plan website will provide notice and information on when those meetings are held, and those are also open to the public. Given the current times, we anticipate that those will also be virtual Zoom meetings rather than in-person meetings. We've had a total of 6 study sessions and briefings and updates with the City Council, some of which have involved the Planning Commission. And the city has also been maintaining an email database of folks who are interested in staying abreast of this project. And if you'd like to be added to the email database, please go to the General Plan website and find the Contact Us button, and you can submit your email to be added to the email distribution list. And we promise not to spam you as part of that. So I mentioned some of the milestone documents. I won't dwell on these, but what was a very critical early stage document was the existing conditions report. So as a very detailed analysis of a wide range of topics, everything from demographics, economic and market and employment trends, fiscal conditions, housing conditions, a range of environmental topics are addressed, everything from air, water, noise, biological habitat, cultural and historical resources. We also look at traffic, mobility, and circulation. We look at infrastructure and utilities, so water supply, sewer, drainage, electricity, natural gas, public services such as parks, schools, and libraries, and also things related to hazards and safety such as flooding, climate change, risk of wildfire, geologic hazards, seismic hazards, things of that nature. I also mentioned that one of the other key milestone documents we've prepared to date is the Land Use Alternatives Report. So for this analysis, we identified a total of 14 opportunity areas in Milpitas where potential land use changes may be appropriate. And so we prepared changes to the map. We had a number of call-out boxes identifying those changes. And the report includes a detailed summary of the rationale, the reason behind some of these suggested land use changes, and also the implications. So what type of growth might we expect? What might it mean for the fiscal health of the city? What might it mean in terms of jobs generation potential? What might it mean in terms of traffic generation and traffic impacts? So to come up with these change areas or these opportunity areas, we got input from a lot of sources. We had multiple workshops and meetings with the city council where they provided input on the land use map. We had land use map input during our initial community outreach visioning workshops. The GPAC provided a lot of input on the map. Professional planning staff from the city provided their observations and suggestions. And we also used a lot of the key findings from our market analysis and our economic study. Where are we seeing different types of leakage? How can the city better compete in the Bay Area job market? So there were a lot of factors that informed the land use map and the land use alternatives report. So the general plan itself is made up of a series of elements or chapters. Each one addresses a discrete topic. There could be some opportunities to combine certain chapters, but in general, the state requires 7 mandatory elements, and these are listed on the left. They include land use, circulation, housing, conservation, open space, safety, and noise. I have housing asterisks because that's not actually a part of our work program for this general plan update. Housing elements are a bit of a specific animal in the planning world, and they require certification by the state every 8 years. So the city will be embarking on its next update in 2021, but you currently have an adopted certified housing element that we're not updating at this current point in time. The city also has a tremendous amount of discretion in including optional elements for its general plan. So these include, in the topics we've included in the draft at the direction of the city council, include economic development, community design, parks and recreation, utilities and community services, and also implementation. So this will be the content of the draft general plan that'll be available on the website very soon.
And Ben, just to add, we're also going to have health and wellness in there. It didn't show up on the list, but it's there too.
On the list, and that's one of Jessica's near and dear topics. Yes, we absolutely have a health and wellness element. Thank you for that. I'll correct this PowerPoint before I get it posted.
No problem. Thank you.
All right. So, what is an environmental impact report, or an EIR? It is a robust, detailed environmental technical document. Provides a lot of information describing the anticipated environmental effects of implementing a project as required by CEQA. And in this case, the project is the general plan itself. There are not any specific development proposals in front of the city as part of the general plan update. The project is the plan itself. So this doesn't otherwise approve or entitle any specific development. Development applications still need to go through the regular planning application process and work their way through the city's procedures, be it through planning commission, city council, depending on the nature of the application. So an EIR also provides a forum for public participation in the environmental review process. So I'll show you a flow chart on kind of the various documents we prepare as part of CEQA to do an EIR, because there's a number of milestone documents and opportunities for detailed public review and comment on the analysis that we put together. An EIR typically includes mitigation measures, which are aimed at reducing the potential adverse environmental impacts of a project. So in the instances of the general plan, we're looking out over a 20-year horizon, what types of impacts might occur to the environment as a result of implementing this plan, and what can we do to mitigate or lessen those impacts? And that's the key thrust of what the EIR is analyzing. One thing I really want to clarify is that an EIR does not advocate or promote the project. So there's going to be no statements in the EIR that say, therefore, the general plan is a good idea and it should be adopted, or therefore, this is the best policy approach for Milpitas. The EIR is a very neutral disclosure document that analyzes potential impacts and recommends potential mitigation measures. And to that end, certifying the EIR by the City Council does not determine whether or not the general plan will be approved. They're really two separate actions by the Council. You have your general plan and whether or not you adopt it, and then you have the environmental analysis and whether or not you certify it. So here's a flow chart that shows the environmental review project process. So the city has determined, as with most general plans, that it is subject to CEQA and is defined as a project under state law. We have prepared a notice of preparation, basically letting people know that, hey, then an EIR is coming. So this notice of preparation goes out for a 30-day public review and comment period. So we are in the midst of that 30-day comment period right now, and we're holding this scoping meeting as part of that. We are in the process of and will continue to prepare the draft EIR, which is it's the meat and potatoes. It's that bulky document that provides that full analysis. When it's done and ready, we will publish that for a 45-day public review and comment period. So members of the public will get to read the document, read our supporting technical analysis, and provide written comments to say, hey, did we get it right? I think you should look at this, and provide input on the environmental analysis. When that 45-day period concludes, we'll go prepare what's called the final EIR. So this will be written responses to all the comments that we've received and any changes or corrections to the draft EIR as a result of those comments. We'll then prepare what's called the findings of fact and statement of overriding considerations. We also prepare a mitigation monitoring and reporting program, and then that will all get packaged up and go to the Planning Commission and City Council later in the process. And assuming the City Council certifies the EIR, we then file what's called a notice of determination. So the issues to be addressed in the EIR. So for those of you that are familiar with the CEQA process, sometimes we prepare what's called an initial study where we can identify various environmental topics that either clearly have no impact or are not relevant to the project. And we can do what's called scoping those out, saying, hey, we've looked at them at a light level here and determined that they don't need a robust analysis. That's not the approach we're taking for this project. For this project, we are addressing the full gamut of environmental topics included under CEQA. So these include aesthetics, air quality, agricultural and forest resources, biological resources, cultural resources, energy, geology and soils, greenhouse gas emissions, hazards and hazardous materials, hydrology and water quality, land use and planning, mineral resources, noise, population and housing, public services, parks and recreation, transportation and traffic, tribal cultural resources, utilities and service systems, wildfires, and then we also have a couple of mandatory findings that we need to make under CEQA. So I just really want to clarify that we are addressing the full gamut of what we call Appendix G to the CEQA guidelines and addressing all of the topics that are included under the California Environmental Quality Act. So the NOP comment period, which we are in the midst of now, it's 30 days. It ends next Monday, August 17th at 5 p.m. So for those of you wishing to submit comments, you can submit your comments in writing by email, regular mail, or you can hand deliver them. So by email, that would be to Jessica Garner's email address, which I have down there at the bottom of the screen. And you can also deliver them to City Hall, either by mail or in person, although I think by mail is probably best right now. I'm not sure if City Hall is even open to the public at this time.
Yeah, we're closed right now, so by mail would be great.
Yes, yeah, COVID, say no more. So those are the avenues and the opportunities in terms of submitting comments. These are all noted in the NOP. And again, if you go to milpitas.generalplan.org, you can see a copy of the NOP. This contact information is clearly posted on the website if you're not jotting it down right now during this meeting. And in terms of our next steps moving forward, so as I mentioned, we will proceed with our analysis and preparation of the draft EIR. And when that is done and complete, we'll publish that for a 45-day public review and comment period. At the end of those 45 days, we'll take stock of all the comments we've received, provide written responses to those, and include those in what we call the final EIR. And then ultimately, we'll be scheduling meetings, hopefully later this year, with the Planning Commission to review the EIR, and they'll be asked to make a recommendation to the City Council. And then the City Council will take action to certify the EIR and approve the general plan update. So those hearings are not yet scheduled, but we're working diligently towards holding those as soon as feasible. And the city will make sure there's ample public notice and announcement of when subsequent project meetings are going to occur. So that concludes my presentation. So I will pull this PowerPoint off. And at this point, I will look to Liz to see if we have received any questions or comments or anything I can respond to as part of this public scoping meeting. And again, I really just want to reiterate to folks who have ideas and comments about the environmental analysis. Again, please submit those in writing before next Monday or by next Monday. And again, you Email is usually easiest. You can also stick them in the mail and send them to City Hall. And again, all the contact information is available online and on the website. So with that, I'll look to Liz and see if there's any questions or comments that I should respond to.
So we received an email from Barbara Jo Navarro. She had previously sent a comment to through Jessica Garner. Will you be able to respond to Barbara Jo's comment?
So I'll give you a partial answer. So I read the comment letter this morning. It raised a couple of issues, one of which was related to the designation of the Hetch Hetchy Trail as a scenic resource. So I'll make a general response. That was a comment based on some suggestions and some content for the general plan document itself. And we appreciate that people are starting to already provide key important comments on the actual substance of the general plan. So we have that comment. We've put it in the project folder with the rest of the public comments that we've been receiving on the general plan. And when we get to the actual draft general plan review period, we'll formally release it for review and comment. And that's the stage of the process where we're going to be seeking input on, hey, I'd like to see this policy, or I'd like a priority on the Hetch Hetchy Trail, or whatever the case may be in terms of someone's policy preferences. But the particular comment that was raised did not necessarily address a specific environmental topic that's subject to CEQA. So again, just kind of parsing out that difference between a comment on the actual general plan versus a comment on the environmental analysis. But I want to assure all members of the public that submitted these emails in writing, if they make it to Jessica, they're making it to me. We're putting them in the project folder. We're going to be sharing these public comments with the Planning Commission and the City Council. And we'll also make sure that there's ample opportunity for people to comment on the general plan when it goes out for its review period as well.
And just to note, Ben, there were some comments that I've received. They've all been forwarded to you, but similar to what you just mentioned, and specifically for Barbara Jo Navarro's email, there are some questions or some comments in there that are not related to the general plan. I will respond to those separately and just let you know. But overall, there is a distinction between, what the general plan provides information about, and then what our zoning ordinance and our specific plans actually regulate. And so there's a big distinction. I think there's some confusion from the community. I will try to clarify that, but in general, I guess, Ben, if you can just maybe offer a few words to help people understand the distinction between a general plan and then a more specific regulatory document like the zoning code or a specific plan. I think that would be helpful for folks that may be watching and are confused about it.
Absolutely. So, yeah, what I can offer so the general plan provides, we often refer to the general plan as the constitution or the blueprint for the city. So it provides big picture policy guidance and direction in terms of large scale priorities, have a diverse employment base, have a range of housing affordable to all income levels, encourage mixed use pedestrian environments to have a vibrant, economic development center in various places within the city. So it provides that higher level policy direction. The city has other ordinances. One very common one that most people are familiar with is the zoning ordinance or the zoning code, which provides much more nuanced and specific development direction and regulation. So for example, things like height limits of buildings, how far a building has to be set back from the street, the number of parking spaces required per square foot for a commercial or a retail use. Those are all detailed, what I'll call site planning level of detail issues that are addressed in the zoning code. So the general plan is usually not the document or the forum where that level of development regulation is spelled out by the city. So what we'll be doing during subsequent community workshops when we get comments to that effect is, we understand what you're driving at here with respect to height limits or whether or not a certain use should require a conditional use permit or not. Those are going to be issues tackled in other regulatory documents like the zoning code. And we'll help educate people on if the general plan is the appropriate document for the suggestion or request that they're making.
Thank you, Ben. I think that's very helpful. For some folks that are participating, they may not have been through this process before. Especially if you are familiar with what's been going on with the city of Milpitas. For those of you that aren't aware, we haven't updated our general plan since 1994. So this is, very much it's a big effort. It's taken us several years to get to this point. We're very excited to be able to bring the environmental documents to you for your review, which will be out shortly. We're excited to bring the draft general plan to you, which will be out shortly as well. We're going to have a lot of opportunity for public comment on those and also for clarification so that there's an understanding about what the plan does and doesn't do. But I definitely encourage people to take a look at the general plan website. Look through some of those documents, and if you're curious about what our existing general plan actually contains, you can go on the city's website. If you go to the planning page, we do have a link to the general plan, so you can take a look at what we adopted back in the mid-90s and kind of get a sense of the generality of the plan and really what it's intending to do. So definitely not the place to be talking about development standards, but it is a great place to be talking about the general vision. So thank you, Ben, for clarifying that. Are there any other questions, Liz, that have been received?
Yes, so I have a comment from Frank Bush, 892 Palma Place. He has 6 comments or 6 statements. Number 1, designate the Hetchy Hetchy Trail as an official scenic resource to preserve and protect the views from the trail. What is the current status and what is required to establish this designation?
I can speak to that, and I think there was we got a number of comments. They're almost identical from some folks in the city that are asking the same questions. So I don't know if it's really useful during this time to go through each of those. We can, just for the satisfaction of those folks. But generally speaking, the Hetch Hetchy Trail, we've noted your comment. It basically, just to preface, we are in the process of updating the city's trails and open space master plan right now. So those comments are being forwarded to the project manager who's responsible for updating that plan. We'll take those comments as a general suggestion for the general plan, but really the information needs to be included in that specific planning process. So we'll make sure that those comments go over to that person and they can get back to you and let you know what the process is for that.
Okay, the next one, he mentions so this is number 2, put height restrictions on structures near residential neighborhoods in addition to FAR limits. 3, the city should... I can actually,
Liz, let me go back and I'll just answer each question as we get to it.
Okay.
So just in general for the audience, development standards like height, floor area ratio, setbacks, and Ben already mentioned this in his presentation, those are not a component of the general plan. So when you're making those kinds of requests, first of all, please note that they're in the zoning code right now, and each zoning district regulates all of those issues. We call them development standards. They're very clearly outlined in the code, and if you have questions about that, please feel free to contact the city's planning department and we can help you walk through those, but that's not a component of the general plan.
Number 3, the city should closely scrutinize and limit conditional use permits and enforce adequate parking requirements for large projects near residential neighborhoods. Number 4.
Oh wait, and I'm sorry. I'll just briefly comment on each one so I don't forget. Okay. Thank you for your comments. Again, a little outside the purview of the general plan. However, we are taking your comments regarding height and really looking at the relationship between residential neighborhoods and commercial districts. We've taken those comments and we'll note them in the plan itself. Thank you, Liz. I'm sorry, next question.
Oh yeah, I know. Number 4, and this is still from Mr. Frank Bush. Use stringent criteria to decide which potential components of an EIR will actually be required in the EIR for a given project. Include community input in those decisions.
Thanks, Liz. So each of the planners, when we have a development project that we're reviewing, that again is outside the purview of the general plan. So this is with respect to any particular project that comes into the city. They do utilize all of the goals and policies in the general plan when they are creating their recommendation for the given project. So we do already utilize the language in the general plan. And again, floor area ratio is that's a development standard that's actually in our zoning code. Just so folks understand as well, we're going to be updating our zoning code in the next couple of years. We really needed to get through the general plan process in order to solidify that vision. Then we'll go in and start actually updating some of the regulatory standards that accompany each of our zoning districts. So that is coming, and there will be ample opportunity for public comment. And just to reiterate, I think everybody is relatively familiar with this, but the public always has an opportunity to comment on any of our projects. They're all subject to a public review. Many of them have a public hearing. And if you have concerns about that particular project at that time, that's when you would submit comments to the city.
Number 5, when setting requirements, consider current and projected future needs. For example, when evaluating parking requirements and traffic impacts, account for local usage patterns rather than using industry boilerplate standards. A gateway city like Milpitas in the Bay Area is very different from a small town elsewhere in the country or the world.
Thanks, Liz. Yeah, that's kind of I think that seems to be a question and a commentary about how agencies utilize transportation traffic standards and how we utilize information in order to make decisions about circulation or access or traffic volumes for a given project. And again, that's outside the purview of the general plan. So that's not a component of what we're considering today in our discussion. But thanks for the input. And again, I think this is really an opportunity for us to do some good community outreach with folks so that you can have a better understanding of what the entire country uses in terms of evaluating traffic standards and all of the things that we do as a standard of practice as well.
Last comment from Mr. Frank Bush. Obtain timely and broad community input by informing residents about proposed projects that affect them as soon as possible in proactive ways such as email and Nextdoor.
Duly noted, and I'm pleased to say that I hope we have a number of people that are able to participate in the meeting today because we have been utilizing social media standards via email, updating our webpage, sending out notices. So we are doing our best, and we will continue to try and evolve as technology evolves with us. So thank you for the comment.
Now I have a comment from Miss Barbara Jo Navarro. She says, thank you for your clear presentation. First question, would it be possible to see the issues and opportunity identification report? I believe this report was completed back in 2018 or earlier. Please confirm.
We do have that document, Ben. I'm not sure if it's on the website. We can certainly have that uploaded. I can't recall if we had it already, if it's shown up there as a document.
We'll circle back and make sure all of the available project information is up on the website. In many instances, a lot of the issues and opportunities came in the form of technical memos as part of the GPAC packets. So for someone who really wants to dig into these various topics, I would also suggest if you scroll through the meetings and documents page, find previous GPAC meetings on the general plan website. And a lot of the memos that were presented to the GPAC present issues and opportunities related to the topic du jour.
Thank you, Ben. And I would just say from Ms. Navarro, if you have any particular questions, please feel free to reach out to me and we can set up a time to talk more directly about that. And also make sure that if it's a component that we want to include in our public outreach and when we actually conduct our public forums, when we do release the draft EIR, be happy to take your comments and get your suggestions, because if there's something you're unclear about, it could be something that other people are unclear about as well. And we want to make sure that there's no confusion about the general plan itself, what it can do, and it's, what we've already identified throughout this process. So thank you for your comment.
Her second question is, how many residents participated in the online surveys that were conducted?
Those were conducted back in 2016 and early 2017. I don't know, Ben. It was actually prior to me coming, so I'm not sure how many folks participated. Were you actually able to get numbers on those?
Oh, they exist. I could not tell you off the top of my head. I'm looking to see. I just don't have those off the top of my head. We have published workshop summary reports. I will make sure those are on the website. I believe they are. And that information will be contained in those. But off the top of my head, I just don't know the number.
Yeah, this was, just to frame the length of time we've been involved in this process. That was in 2016. So we've been going through this for quite a while, and our elected officials have changed over. Our planning commission has changed over. A lot of staff has changed over. I'm thrilled that I've been able to participate since I started in 2017, and we've been really fortunate to be able to work with Ben and his team at De Novo. So really, the history is here. I can tell you that in terms of our GPAC participation and community involvement, we've had a lot of really great feedback from the community as they have been able to participate. We've had participation when we presented to our city council. We had some special meetings in the past couple of years. And we've really, really benefited from all the great feedback that we've gotten from the community and from the GPAC as they've reviewed this process.
Again, from Ms. Navarro. When looking at traffic, how did you perform your analysis? Did you look at actual traffic patterns?
Yeah, I can give a concise answer to that. So there are two key components to traffic analyses today in 2020. There's the concept of level of service, which is LOS, which essentially gives a letter grade to roadway segments and intersections based on how they're functioning. So you can think of an LOS A intersection as quick stop, free flowing, you don't have to wait, all the way down to LOS F intersection where we've all been there and it's your turn to make a left and you can't get through that light cycle. And it's basically a severely congested intersection where traffic has it's difficult for the intersection to handle that volume of traffic. As of July 1st, 2020, so as of just last month, level of service is no longer an environmental topic that a city can analyze under CEQA or in an environmental impact report. The state of California, through various legislation, specifically Senate Bill 743, has now required that environmental traffic analyses focus on a different metric, which is vehicle miles traveled, or VMT. And VMT is less concerned with how intersections function and more concerned with land use patterns that cities adopt and implement that seek to reduce the average number of vehicle miles traveled per resident or per employee. And so for this EIR, the analysis of traffic is going to be focused primarily on VMT, vehicle miles traveled. And I will note that separate from the CEQA process, the traffic study will also include an analysis of level of service, or LOS, that will help the city understand the traffic congestion implications of this general plan, but it's not a topic that we're allowed to look at under CEQA in the EIR anymore as of July 1st. So it gets very technical. It's all happening in real time in terms of legislative changes to traffic analyses, but I hope that explanation provided a little bit of clarity, and there will be a detailed traffic study attached as an appendix to the environmental impact report.
So, and thank you, Ben. And just basically to paraphrase, there will be much more information coming out about how the traffic was modeled, the process, and how Ben was able to get that information. That's all coming out very soon as that EIR comes out and we review the draft. So more information on that, as well as more of an opportunity to answer questions and clarify any confusion about it. It is confusing. It's very technical.
Her next question is, where can I find the market analysis?
I believe that the market analysis is an appendix to the existing conditions report. So I would look for the existing conditions report. That's going to have a chapter based on the findings of the market analysis. And I believe that the market analysis is attached as an appendix, even if it's not all of the key findings from the market analysis report are in the existing conditions report. It's probably chapter 1.3 and 1.4 of that report, which is available on the general plan website.
Ms. Navarro asks, can you tell me when the EIR public review will begin approximately?
Approximately another month or two. We don't have a date certain. We're underway. We want to make sure that any comments we got from this meeting and the 30-day NOP comment period, we have time to consider and analyze those relevant comments. But generally we're a month or two out from the draft EIR. And there will be ample notice when that is available and when the 45-day review period starts.
Lastly, Ms. Navarro asked, how can we make comments on issues if we don't know what they entail? Can you point me to a website that defines the elements you listed that will be in the EIR?
In terms of the elements that will be in the draft general plan, we expect that by next week, we will have a working draft of the general plan up on the project website. We won't have started the formal comment and review period of that just yet, but it will be there for people who are interested in reading it early. And the draft or the general plan document will have some context on state requirements for each element. It'll include the full portfolio of goals, policies, and actions that have been drafted to date. And then in terms of the environmental issues and environmental topics for the analysis of that general plan in the EIR itself will have a lot of good information on what the requirements are of CEQA, the various components of an EIR. So when that document is published, look at the introductory chapter and it'll provide a bit of a roadmap for what's in the rest of the report. And for context, EIRs tend to run several hundred pages. So expect to see 400, 500, 600 pages of analysis in the EIR, but we provide an executive summary and a roadmap to help people decipher all of that stuff.
And if you're curious about what a general plan looks like from another city, if you don't want to look at the one that the city created in 1994, I invite anyone to take a look at our surrounding cities within Santa Clara County to see what a general plan looks like. You can take a look at that, get a general idea of what's contained there, and you can see that we'll be following a very similar process. We don't like to reinvent the wheel, but each component, each element of the general plan is very specific to our city once we actually begin to backfill that information. And if you're curious to see what information has already been put forward, really I encourage you to look at the existing policy sets that are on the webpage, and you can get a general sense of what's coming out. But in the next week or so, we'll have the draft general plan ready to go, and you can take a look at that. And hopefully that will also help ease your minds if you're confused about this process.
That was the last of our public comment, Jessica and Ben.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Liz. I think if that is the case, again, we did receive a few letters from folks that are very similar to the questions that Mr. Bush presented that Liz just read out. I will go back and try to respond to those and let you know if, again, if you have any other questions, please let me know if you have any other comments that you'd like to submit. Again, I will make sure that those go to Ben for capture within the EIR as we've gone through this process. But seeing that there are no other additional comments for today, I think it's probably safe to say we can conclude our discussion. So I guess I would just like to first thank Liz for your time to help us read the comments through. And then most importantly to Ben, Richie, for all of your help and oversight of the general plan process. And then to the audience, thank you again for participating. If you have any other questions, please let us know. We'll try to be as interactive as possible. Much more is coming very soon. I'll have that released as soon as we possibly can. And we look forward to working with you as we continue to move towards adoption of the general plan. So thanks everybody for your time. Thanks for participating this morning.
Thank you.